Could my husband's death really be an accident? Or was it the perfect final twist to a calculated plan where I, the naive wife, was the ultimate target? I stood by David's coffin in the black dress he always complimented and felt ... nothing. I ran my fingers over the stiff linen of my collar. No tears came, no choked sob in my throat. Just a cold, silent vacuum sucking the air out of the room. As if someone had cut the power to my heart. Everyone kept saying I'd lost a perfect husband. Right then, my phone rang. A cold, professional voice from National Bank, Mrs. Thompson. I'm calling from National Bank. We just received an urgent request to execute Mr. David's will, signed legally before his passing. By its terms, all joint assets, including the house at 42 Oak Drive where you lived for 35 years, have been transferred into a restrictive trust. We need confirmation to begin the lockdown procedure and handle the $500,000 mortgage payment due in exactly 7 days, starting today. Do you have any questions? That phone call was a knife stab right through the funeral. But I didn't know that stab was just the opening act. Safety deposit box number 723, that non-round number, haunted me. The secret trips at precisely 2:17 p.m. on the 15th, and that quiet blonde woman at the back of the chapel. All of it led me to one single truth. David was never the man I thought he was. He was an equation I hadn't learned to solve. Alina needs you on her side right now. A like is a virtual hug. A subscription is a promise to stay. Show her she's not doing this alone. Help me discover the full truth behind David's death. Promise you, this ride is worth it. Tears finally ran down my face, not from actual pain, but from the rote habit of a wife taught that women must weep at their husband's funeral. I was empty, like his armchair in the living room still there, but all the warmth was gone. That evening, Sophia, my daughter David's little princess, stormed into my room. Her eyes were red, not from sorrow, but pure fury. Mom, her voice was ice. Chloe just sent me a photo of the will. Dad wrote clearly. He wants to protect the future of all his children. Are you seriously going to fight innocent kids for money? And destroy his last wish? My gut twisted. David didn't just cheat. He had quickly set up a narrative that made me the wicked, greedy one in my own daughter's eyes. This wasn't just a fight for assets. It was a fight to win back my own child's belief. David was an accountant. For a numbers guy, accuracy was his gospel. Everything in his life had order from labeled files to paying bills exactly 3 days before the deadline. And this one ritual was so damn steady, it was chilling at precisely 2:17 p.m. on the 15th of every month, rain or shine. David drove to that one old bank branch downtown. Not 2:15 or 2:30, 2:17. He hadn't missed it once in 5 years. When I asked curious the first time, slightly suspicious later he'd kiss my forehead, his warm breath on my skin. He'd say smooth as butter. Just securing our future, Alina. I'm building a shield for you. I bought it. Why wouldn't I? He was David, the man who made numbers bow down. Who could forecast our cash flow for the next 5 years? Who knew our savings balance down to the last freaking cent? But I didn't know that internal clock wasn't ticking for our future. It was counting down to his escape. That 2:17 wasn't a coincidence. It was the first code in a betrayal formula calculated down to the minute. And that formula had a name. A blonde woman I would see again, not in a memory, but right there at my husband's funeral. Numbers were his language and organization was his religion. Our bills were always paid on time. Tax returns filed early. He guaranteed our retirement accounts were rock solid. The day he died, I was home, just getting dinner ready. Michael, my son, called. His voice was something I'd never heard from him before. Direct, measured, like he was scared his own words would shatter me. Mom, you need to get to the hospital now. Dad. He was in an accident. A long, heavy silence. On his way to the airport, the police said ... He was going to pick someone up. Her name is Chloe Dawson. When I arrived, David was already gone. It was a serious single-car accident. The doctors said he probably didn't feel a thing. Quick, clean. Honestly, that's probably exactly how David would have chosen it to be. I didn't cry at the funeral. Everyone just assumed I was in shock. An old friend of David's, a failed investment partner, came up to offer his condolences. He leaned in and whispered, "David was always the master of numbers and plans. I bet he had everything meticulously arranged." Then his eyes scanned the crowd, stopping in a far corner. There was that blonde woman again, alone in a black dress, her face hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. "Anyway, ... stay strong," he mumbled. He bolted before I could even ask him what he was looking at. I turned back. She was gone. But the reality was simpler and much weirder. Back in our empty house, I sank into David's old armchair. I felt hollow, not from loss, but from the chilling absence of the grief I should have felt. The chair kept its shape, but the leather had lost his familiar warmth and scent. Instead, there was stale cigarette smoke. And this strange, sweet, unfamiliar perfume. I didn't hate him. But deep down, beneath the shock and the exhaustion of all the casserole dishes, people kept dropping off. I realized I could finally breathe. I just couldn't figure out why. 3 days after the funeral, a letter arrived. Blank white envelope. No stamp, no postmark. My name, Alina Thompson, was typed in 11.5-point Courier New, perfectly left-aligned. I knew that layout immediately. David's default Excel font, he must have printed it himself, so adjusted every millimeter. Inside was a single letter from Central Bank. "Dear Mrs. Thompson, we offer our condolences." It stated that, under the safe deposit box rental terms, we must notify you that you are listed as the secondary authorized accessor. Box number 723 was paid up for the rest of the year. Please contact us at your convenience to arrange access. I read it 3 times. Safe deposit box. David never mentioned it. Not once in over 3 decades. I called the bank that afternoon. The woman on the line was polite, professional. Yes, the box was registered to David Thompson, with Alina Thompson as cosigner. Yes, I could access it. How about Thursday at 10 a.m.? Thursday, only 2 days away. I spent those 2 days moving like a ghost. Opening David's organized drawers, staring at the files labeled with his perfect handwriting. Everything looked normal. To normal. Like a stage set designed to look exactly like a perfect life. Michael came by on Wednesday night. He looked exhausted. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot. He walked in and gave me a massive hug. "Sorry I'm late, Mom." As he hugged me, his eyes unintentionally flashed toward David's office door, which was ajar. On the rug, one corner of that white envelope, the one with number 723 scrawled on it, was peeking out from under a notepad. My heart hammered. Did he see it? Michael just sighed, rubbing his forehead wearily. "Dad's office, ... It's insane how perfectly organized everything still is." He didn't seem to notice the envelope. I breathed a sigh of relief, but my hands were still shaking as I led him to the kitchen. He was still grieving hard for his dad. "Mom," he said, sinking into David's usual kitchen chair. "We need to talk about Dad's finances." I went through his office files, and some stuff just isn't adding up. A wave of ice-cold dread rushed from my neck down my spine, like someone dumped a bucket of ice water right into my chest. I gripped the mug of tea so tightly my knuckles turned white, trying to swallow a non-existent gulp of hot air in my dry throat. What isn't adding up? He pulled out a file. "Mom, our joint checking account has only $342 left. It's Dad's retirement. Account is practically zero." My heart clinched. But this is the disaster. Michael pointed to a scanned document. A new mortgage loan on our house. $500,000. Did you sign this power of attorney POA? I looked at my forged signature. My blood ran cold. No, I never saw this. And here, Michael handed me 7 credit card statements, a total of $120,000 in debt. All in your name, all with a fake signature. But the thing that truly paralyzed me was a transaction repeating precisely for 5 years in David's account. Every month, right on the 15th, always. $5,000 transferred to a Nevada account labeled CD Trust. The first transaction date, June 15th, our 25th wedding anniversary. Who is CD? I whispered. Michael shook his head, his face pale. I don't know. But I know this. He pointed to the fine print on the bank letter. The safe deposit box letter has a clause. Your access rights automatically expire 7 days from the date of his death. He looked up at me, his eyes full of worry. Dad died on the 10th. Mom, today is the 12th. We only have 5 days left. And if what I suspect is true, ... single quotes, Michael, took a sharp breath. Single quotes, ... that deadline might be our only chance to save anything at all. The door flew open. Sophia, my daughter, stood there, her eyes red-rimmed. What decision? Are you and Michael really discussing money on the day of Dad's funeral? Sophia, it's not ... single quotes, Michael tried to explain. Dad was perfect. Sophia screamed, tears streaming down her face. You cannot touch his private box. If you do this, you're destroying everything. I will never forgive you. The door slammed shut. I looked at Michael, my heart aching. But then the image of my mother, the woman who was abandoned and died in poverty, flashed through my mind. I swore I would not repeat that fate. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was consumed by those regular bank trips on the 15th, the chilling precision, and David's words. Don't worry about money, Alina. I've taken care of everything. He had taken care of it. In his own way. Thursday morning arrived, cold and gloomy. I dressed meticulously, choosing a navy blazer and slacks. It was armor, not morning clothes. Michael offered to come, but I refused. Whatever was in that box, I needed to face it alone first. The bank was a modern building of glass and steel. The manager, a middle-aged man named Mark, met me at the entrance. Smile was professional, full of practiced sympathy. Mrs. Thompson, I am so sorry for your loss. Your husband was a very valued client for many years. He led me down a corridor to the vault. The safe deposit boxes lined the walls like metal teeth. He used to keys his and the one he handed me to open box 713. I'll give you privacy, he said, gesturing to a small room with a table and a chair. The box was heavier than I thought. I carried it to the table, set it down, and for a long moment, I just stared at it. Smooth metal, locked secrets. The physical summary of a marriage I thought I understood. My hand trembled as I held the small key. David had kept hidden for 30 years. The dry click as the lock opened sounded like a bone snapping them. Rib of trust, or perhaps the spine of my life. I lifted the lid. The interior was astonishingly neat, divided into 3 clearly numbered files. Terrifyingly orderly. I opened the first file, and David's world, the real one, slammed into me with a dizzying shock. Photos: a young blonde woman, smiling radiantly, hugging 2 children in front of the Cinderella castle at Disneyland. And David, my David, stood there with his arm around her waist, beaming in a setting I had never been to. Next year, my love. His regretful voice from last year echoed in my mind. Now a vile, bitter lie. My hands shook violently, and the photo fell onto the table. My fingers went cold and senseless. A chill shot down my spine, freezing everything from my heart to my brain. My own breathing sounded shallow, hurried, and alien, as if I were someone drowning in that cold subterranean room. But the photos were just the beginning. There were invoices for expensive private schools, a lease for a luxury apartment, and a sapphire blue sweater on the little boy in the picture. I recognized it instantly. The same model, color, and exclusive brand David had bought for our own grandson. It's only one of its kind, he had said. Another lie. At the bottom of the photo stack was a handwritten note, the script painfully familiar. Objective, secure CD's future. Timeline, 5 years. My heart constricted. I flipped to the second file, which held the cold, irrefutable truth. Bank statements charting the journey of every dollar from our joint accounts to the CD trust name. A detailed plan titled Transition Final Phase was clearly listed, cashing out retirement, the home mortgage loan, and the regular $5,000 monthly transfers. And one line stopped me cold. Solve the Alina problem with an ominous question mark next to it, but the paper underneath completely paralyzed me. One-way plane tickets for 3, from Chicago to Arizona, departing on October 15th. Exactly. 1 week after his death, next to them was a USB drive labeled Arizona Backup. The devastating truth crashed down. David didn't plan to die. He planned to run away. The final file was the fatal blow. A $1.5 million life insurance contract, beneficiary, Chloe Dawson, payable within the next 48 hours. And a thick envelope labeled Final Will on the outside. I opened it with trembling hands. The will was brief, cold, leaving everything to Chloe and our children. Then came the letter David's last words to me. Alina, if you're reading this, my plan failed. I wasn't supposed to die. I was going to start over. Chloe and the kids. They need a full-time, committed man. You and our children are grown. You're strong. They are not ... just let things happen as planned. Will be less painful for everyone. And below that, a hurried scrawl like a final warning. But if you still try, remember, all the evidence is against you. I sat there, in the silent, underground room, still holding the letter. There were no tears left, only a profound emptiness consuming me. 30 years. 30 years spent with a man who viewed me only as an Alina problem to be solved. As I was about to close the box, my hand brushed against a small object taped to the underside a hidden USB drive. Back home, Michael opened it. It's a screen. Showed David standing in front of a mirror, practicing his lines. Alina, you agreed? No, that sounds unnatural. Alina, we talked about this. Then he stopped, looked directly into the mirror, and a cold, triumphant smile spread across his face. She'll believe anything? That sentence echoed in my mind like a final verdict. She'll believe anything. 30 years of blind trust. Now weaponized to destroy me. The USB also contained another piece of elaborate forgery, a pre-drafted email. Printout dated and signed by me stating, to my dearest David, please do what you think is best for our family. I completely trust your decisions. The date on the email was June 15th, our 25th wedding anniversary. And the very day those periodic transfers to Chloe's account began. A perfect plan, meticulously prepared in the shadows, designed to turn me from a victim into a willing accomplice. If Alina ever found out and challenged him, or if things went to court, he intended to use this email as proof that Alina had tacitly agreed and given him full authority. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and placed everything. Back in the box at home, I laid all the documents on the table in front of Michael. We have only 7 days, I said, my voice strangely calm. 7 days from your father's death. After that, everything goes to them. And the $1.5 million life insurance pays out to Chloe in the next 48 hours. Michael's face flushed red. With indignation, we need a lawyer, right now. We found Jennifer Morales, a family lawyer renowned as a no-holds-barred warrior. She went through the file, her eyes sharp. She said nothing, just flipped through the pages at a dizzying speed. Then she stopped at the statement showing the periodic $5,000 transfers. Jennifer Morales looked up, her gaze no longer that of a normal lawyer, but of a hunter. Mrs. Thompson, Her voice was low. This isn't a will contest. This is a systematic case of financial infidelity planned over 5 years. He used your trust as a tool and forged signatures as weapons. And that perfect will, she pointed, is just the final step to legalize the theft. But he made a mistake. He kept all the evidence. We have 7 days to dismantle that plan. And 48 hours to block the insurance money, which would turn Chloe from a mistress into a formidable legal creditor. In the file labeled New Project CD, there was an apartment lease invoice. I drove straight there, a luxury high-rise complex by the lake. I needed to see the face behind the initials CD and the CD Trust. Chloe Dawson opened the door. She was young, perfectly beautiful, and cold as an ice sculpture. The brilliant cut diamond ring on her hand sparkled with wealth, the source of which I knew well. Mrs. Thompson, her voice was flat, without a hint of surprise. David said you were smart. I knew you'd show up. He was planning to run away with you, I stated, the calmness in my voice surprising even myself. Run away? A thin, cold smile appeared on her lips, not reaching her eyes still. Eyes. It was the transition plan. He gave you 30 years. Now it was time for him to live for himself and for our children. Her gaze swept over me like I was an obstacle to be cleared. David said you tacitly agreed. That you didn't want more children, only wanted to focus on your ... boring library career. He lied. Says simple words, cutting like a blade. Then prove it. Chloe's voice was challenging, her eyes glinting with toxic confidence. You have 7 days, don't you? David loved the number 7. But everything is arranged? The will, the insurance, the plane tickets. Everything is legally binding on paper. Fighting this will only make you lose more. Just let it go. It will be less painful. Less painful? The words echoed David's letter exactly like an haunting incantation. I turned my back, deciding to end this pointless conversation, but her triumphant voice followed me. Oh, and your daughter Sophia. It's very understanding. We spoke. She understands why her father needed a place where he was appreciated. I stopped dead and turned back. My voice was low and sharp. What did you say to my daughter? The smile on Chloe's face widened, full of malice. I just helped her understand that her father deserved happiness, and she was almost willing to sign a small power of attorney to confirm that David always wanted to provide for his extended family. Too bad Michael intervened in time. Blood rushed to my head, but I clenched my fists, forcing my voice to remain calm. If you approach my daughter one more time, I said each word distinct, I will report you to the police for fraud and coercion of a minor. Your game ends here. The apartment door slammed shut behind me, the sharp sound like a gunshot signaling the beginning of a war. The air in the hallway seemed suddenly stifling. I stepped into the elevator, my trembling finger pressing the ground. Floor button. The doors closed and the elevator moved for a few seconds before abruptly jerking and stopping between floors. The lights flickered, then died completely, plunging everything into terrifying silence and darkness. 1 second. 2 seconds. My heart hammered against my ribs. Then the light snapped back on, and the elevator slowly continued its ascent. As the light flooded in, I saw it, scribbled across the polished steel wall. Someone had used bright red lipstick to write big, crude letters, "Stay out, 7 days." A cold dread shot down my spine. The threat wasn't on paper anymore. It had jumped into the real world. It haunted the air, the light, the very space I stood in. This war just escalated into a new chapter, darker and more dangerous than I'd imagined. I left without looking back. That meeting gave me something more crucial than information, a clear enemy and an urgency greater than all the numbers. I walked out of that viewing room with a straight back and clenched teeth. Mark was waiting. Mrs. Thompson, are you okay? No, I answered honestly, but I will be. I need copies of everything in that box, and I need the name of a phenomenal lawyer who handles financial fraud. His eyes widened slightly, but he nodded. I'll personally handle the copies. And Mrs. Thompson, I truly am sorry. When I got home, Michael's car was already in the driveway. He met me at the door, his face tight with worry. Mom, I found. Something else? Dad's life insurance policy. Don't tell me, I said, dropping my purse with unnecessary force. There's no policy. He blinked. How did you know? Because your father spent the last 5 years destroying everything we built, and apparently he was thorough. I strode past him into the kitchen, pulled out the bank copies, and spread them on the counter. Sit down, we have work to do. We only have 7 days. Michael read through everything. His face went from pale to flushed, then pale again. When he was done, he looked at me, his eyes wet. Mom, this is bad. Seriously, really bad. I know. The house, my retirement, my credit score, everything is gone. I know. How are you so calm? I sat down across from him, folding my arms on the table because anger is useless right now. What I need is a plan, a warrior. That warrior was Jennifer. Morales, Mark from the bank, had specifically recommended her for cases like mine. We met at her office the following Monday, a bright space with windows overlooking the downtown area. She listened without interruption as I told her everything. The safe deposit box, the loans, the credit cards, the forged signatures, and David's cold letter. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to be frank with you. This is one of the worst cases of spousal financial abuse I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot. The word hung in the air. Abuse. Your husband systematically destroyed your financial safety and did it all in your own name. This isn't just mismanagement. This is fraud. It's identity theft. It's a crime. But he's dead, I said. So what can we actually do? We can prove you were not an accomplice. We can work with the creditors to show the signatures were forged. We have a shot at saving the house by proving the loans were fraudulent. But it will be a fight. How long will it take? 6 months? Maybe a year. And it's going to cost money you probably don't have. I thought about the $342 left in our checking account, the empty retirement funds, the massive debt in my name. Then I thought about the letter, David's careful handwriting, and 30 years of promises. Don't worry, Elena. I'll figure out the money, I said. Tell me what we need to do. That night, Sophia called. My daughter had always been closer to her dad than to me. When I told her what I'd found, the silence on the other end lasted so long I thought she'd hung up. Mom, she finally said, her voice tiny. Are you sure? Maybe there's another explanation. I have the documents, Sophia. I have his letter admitting it, but Dad wouldn't do that. He loved you. He loved us. Yes, I said. And he also stole my identity and ruined our financial future. Both things can be true. She hung up right after that. Michael called me in awe. Hour later to say Sophia had called him in tears, insisting I was wrong, that I was slandering Dad. That grief was making me crazy. She come around, Mom, Michael said. Let's give her time. But I wasn't sure, because I'd seen this in other contexts, with other families. The person who refuses to believe the truth, the one who needs the lie to be true, because the truth would break something fundamental inside them. The next few weeks were a relentless blur of paperwork. Phone calls and meetings. Jennifer filed. Reports with the credit bureaus, contacted the credit card companies, gathering evidence of the forged signatures. We hired a handwriting expert who confirmed what I already knew. I hadn't signed those applications. Michael threw himself into helping me. He organized files, created spreadsheets, attended meetings. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table going over another stack of documents, he looked up at me. Mom, I need to tell you something. I put my pen down. All right, few years ago, Dad asked me to invest with him in a tech startup. Said it was a sure thing, that we'd make a fortune. I had saved $50,000 for the grandkids' college fund. He wanted me to put all of it in. My heart sank. Michael, please tell me you didn't. I almost did. But Sarah, my wife, she didn't trust it. She asked if it was a sure thing. Why did he need our money? We fought about it. I was so angry at her, but she stood her ground. I told Dad no. He looked at me with pain in his eyes. I think he was already in trouble then. Think he was trying to use my money to cover his mistakes. Hey, and if you had said yes, we would have lost everything else too. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. But you didn't. Sarah saved you. That's what matters. Do you think he would have kept going, taking money from others? I thought about the letter, David's words. I think he was drowning. And people who are drowning grab onto anything they can reach, even if it pulls others under. 3 months after David's death, we had our first win. 2 of the credit card companies agreed that the signatures were forged and removed the debt from my credit history. It wasn't much, but it was significant proof that the truth, however slowly, could prevail. Sophia still wasn't speaking to me. She sent a brief email saying she needed space, that she couldn't accept how I was destroying her father's memory. Michael said she'd come around, but I wasn't convinced. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. The lawyer representing the home mortgage lenders was more difficult to deal with. They argued that, as David's wife, I had benefited from the money, even if I didn't sign the papers. Jennifer countered that I could prove I never saw the money. It had been transferred into David-only accounts and spent on failed investments before I even knew they existed. We will have to go to court, Jennifer said in one meeting. A judge will have to decide whether you are responsible for debt created through fraud, even while you were married to the person who committed it. Will we win? She hesitated, and I appreciated the honesty. I think so, but I can't guarantee it. This is a complex area of law. Court date was set for late November, 6 months after David's death. In the weeks leading up to the trial, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked for a job. At 60, I wasn't a prime candidate. I'd been a stay-at-home mother for most of my adult life, only returning to work part-time in a library once the children were grown. I had retired 3 years ago, looking forward to travel, grandchildren, and the quiet years I thought I deserved. Instead, I was applying for jobs at bookstores and cafes. Anywhere that would hire someone needing to build from scratch. A small, independent bookstore downtown called me for an interview. The owner, a woman named Ruth, looked to be in her early 70s with silver hair and sharp eyes behind red-framed glasses. So, she said, looking over my sparse resume, you were a librarian. You were married for nearly 4 decades, and now you are looking for work. May I ask why? I could have lied, given some reason about boredom or wanting to stay active, but I was too tired of lies, even kind ones. My husband died 6 months ago. I recently discovered he stole my identity and destroyed our finances. I need a job because I am trying to keep my house. Ruth put the resume down and looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. When can you start? I worked at Ruth's bookstore 3 days a week. The pay wasn't great, but it was something. More importantly, it gave me a place to go, a purpose beyond survival. I enjoyed recommending books to customers, shelving the stacks, feeling useful. Ruth and I became friends. 3 months after David's death, we had our first win. 2 of the credit card companies agreed that the signatures were forged and removed the debt from my credit history. It wasn't much, but it was significant proof that the truth, however slowly, could prevail. Sophia still wasn't speaking to me. She sent a brief email saying she needed space, that she couldn't accept how I was destroying her father's memory. Michael said she'd come around, but I wasn't convinced. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. The lawyer representing the home mortgage lenders was more difficult to deal with. They argued that, as David's wife, I had benefited from the money, even if I didn't sign the papers. Jennifer countered that I could prove I never saw the money. It had been transferred into David-only accounts and spent on failed investments before I even knew they existed. We will have to go to court, Jennifer said in one meeting. A judge will have to decide whether you are responsible for debt created through fraud, even while you were married to the person who committed it. Will we win? She hesitated, and I appreciated the honesty. I think so, but I can't guarantee it. This is a complex area of law. The court date was set for late November, 6 months after David's death. In the weeks leading up to the trial, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked for a job. At 60, I wasn't a prime candidate. I'd been a stay-at-home mother for most of my adult life, only returning to work part-time in a library once the children were grown. I had retired 3 years ago, looking forward to travel, grandchildren, and the quiet years I thought I deserved. Instead, I was applying for jobs at bookstores and cafes. Anywhere that would hire someone needing to build from scratch. A small independent bookstore downtown called me for an interview. The owner, a woman named Ruth, looked to be in her early 70s with silver hair and sharp eyes behind red-framed glasses. So she said, looking over my sparse resume, "You were a librarian. You were married for nearly 4 decades, and now you are looking for work. May I ask why?" I could have lied. Given some reason about boredom or wanting to stay active, but I was too tired of lies, even kind ones. My husband died 6 months ago. I recently discovered he stole my identity and destroyed our finances. I need a job because I am trying to keep my house. Ruth put the resume down and looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. "When can you start?" I worked at Ruth's bookstore 3 days a week. The pay wasn't great, but it was something. More importantly, it gave me a place to go, a purpose beyond survival. I enjoyed recommending books to customers, shelving the stacks, feeling useful. Ruth and I became friends. Jennifer stood up. "Your Honor, to illustrate the systematic fraud and intent to deceive, we have 2 final pieces of physical evidence. First, she presented an old leather-bound notebook. This is a signature practice diary found in Mr. Thompson's office safe. She opened it. Page after page was a sequence of practiced Alina Thompson signatures. The first ones were clumsy, but they became smoother, perfect, identical to my own. In the corner of one page was David's small handwriting, almost perfect. Just needs a little more time. The second piece of evidence," Jennifer continued, "is a video file from the USB found in the deposit box." The screen in the courtroom lit up. David appeared, standing in front of the mirror in our bedroom. He was rehearsing. "Alina, you agreed to this from the beginning." He stopped, shaking his head. "No, sounds unnatural." He tried again, his voice smoother. "Alina, we talked about the high-risk investment, remember? I need you to sign this paper to save everything." Then he paused, looked straight into the mirror, and that cold, triumphant smile spread across his face. "She'll believe anything." Video cut out. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. The judge called a recess. We waited in the hallway. Michael paced. Jennifer checked her phone. I just sat quietly on a wooden bench. "You did great, Mom," Michael said. I nodded, but I'm not thinking about my testimony. I'm thinking about Sophia, about the girl who can't accept what her father did, who needs the lie more than she needs the truth. After an hour, we were called back in. The judge looked at both lawyers, then at me. "I have considered all the evidence," he said. "It's the forged signatures, the expert testimony, the written confession of the defendant himself. While I understand the bank's position regarding marital benefit, I cannot overlook the clear evidence of fraudulent activity carried out without Mrs. Thompson's knowledge or consent. I rule in favor of the defendant. The loans are void. The lien on the property is released." Michael grabbed my hand. Jennifer smiled. But as we walked out of the courtroom, my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. "Congrats on the win. But the 7 days aren't over yet." My heart seized. What other tricks did Chloe have? And I felt a tightness that had constricted my chest for 6 months finally release. Subconsciously, I freehand grabbed the button on my navy blazer, the armor I'd worn this morning, and I felt myself breathe deep. For the first time since walking into that vault room with box 723, that breath wasn't blocked by fraudulent debt or the threat in a letter. It was mine. We had one. But walking out of that courthouse, I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted, tired, older, and strangely empty. Because what had I truly gained? My house? Yes. My name cleared? Yes. But I had also lost a marriage. I thought I understood, a partner I thought I knew. And perhaps a daughter who couldn't forgive me for speaking the truth. That evening, Sophia called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom, her voice was choked like she'd been crying. I need to tell you something. All right. After the hearing today, I went to the bank. I asked to see Dad's files, the ones you showed the lawyer. I wanted to prove you were wrong. She took a shaky breath. But you weren't wrong. It was all there. Everything you said, and more. More. He took out another credit card in my name. Never opened it, never saw it, but it's there. $25,000 student loan. My credit score is ruined. I didn't even know. Oh, David. Even from the grave, his secrets kept pouring out. Sophia, I am so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have listened. I just ... I couldn't imagine Dad doing that. He was my father. He taught me how to ride a bike and helped me with my math homework and walked me down the aisle. How could that person be this person? They were both real, I said softly. The good father and the man who made terrible choices. People are not just one thing. She was silent for a moment. Can I come home? Of course, any time. An hour later, my daughter was sitting at the kitchen table, and I made us tea, and we talked. Truly talked about her father, about the debt, about how love and betrayal could coexist in the same person, about how sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us most deeply, not because they are monsters, but because they are flawed and desperate human beings. Jennifer helped Sophia file her own fraud claim just as I had. Michael pulled us all together. The three of us sat in the living room, going over documents, making plans, rebuilding. We're going to get through this, Michael said, and I believed him. Not because it would be easy, but because we were finally speaking the truth, finally seeing clearly. Finally, no longer pretending that silence meant peace. The bookstore became my sanctuary. Ruth taught me about running a small business, about inventory and ordering, and the quiet satisfaction of finding the right book for the right reader. One day, a woman walked in looking lost. Can I help you? I asked. She hesitated, then said, Do you have any books on financial abuse in marriage? I led her to the self-help section, pulled down 3 books, and then on an impulse, I said, I have experience with this. If you want to talk? We talked for an hour. Her story was different from mine, but the pattern was the same. Control, disguised as care. Isolation disguised as protection. Manipulation disguised as love. When she left, she hugged me. Thank you for believing me. After she left, Ruth looked at me. You're good at that. At what? Listening. Believing without judgment. I thought about Sophia's initial reaction. Well, friends who had distanced themselves when I started talking about David's fraud, uncomfortable with the complexity of it all. I know what it feels like not to be believed, I said simply. Over the next few months, more women found their way to the bookstore. Somehow, word had spread that there was someone there who understood, who had been through it, who could point them to resources, to lawyers, and to the truth that they were not crazy. They were not imagining it. They were not alone. Ruth and I started a small support group that met once a month in the back room of the bookstore. Just a circle of chairs, coffee, and women telling their stories. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, the kind of silent abuse that leaves no bruises but leaves you hollow. I shared my story in the first meeting, the whole story. The 15th day bank trips, the safe deposit box, the forged signatures, the legal battle, the daughter who initially didn't believe me, the reconstruction of a life I thought I had settled. How did you stay so strong? Someone asked. I didn't. I said, honestly? I cried. I raged. I was terrified. But I kept moving forward because the other option was to give up, and I had spent too many years letting someone else make my decisions for me. The group grew. 10 women, then 15, then 20. We shared resources, lawyer numbers, tips on rebuilding credit, strategies for dealing with family members who didn't understand. One evening after a particularly successful meeting, Ruth and I sat in the empty bookstore, drinking wine from paper cups. Do you know what you're doing, don't you? She said. Running a support group, building a legacy. David tried to ruin you, to leave you with nothing. Instead, you are helping other women avoid that very fate. You're taking the thing that hurt you and using it to help others. She raised her cup. That's not just survival, that's transformation. I thought about the word transformation. I had spent so much energy trying to get back to who I was, trying to reclaim the life David had stolen. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was to become someone new, someone forged in the fire of betrayal, loss, and the hard work of rebuilding. A year after David's death, I stood in the bookstore at our support group's anniversary, meeting 23 women in a circle. Some I knew well, others were new. We were all connected by the common thread of having trusted someone who broke that trust. When my husband died, I said, I thought my life was over. In a way, it was. The life I thought I had, the marriage I believed in, the future I planned. They all died with him. But something else was born. Not instantly, not easily, but slowly. I looked around the circle. What he did to me was wrong. Legally, morally, ethically, wrong. And I won't pretend otherwise. But what I did next, that was my choice. I could have stayed angry, stayed a victim, stayed stuck in the betrayal. Instead, I chose to move forward, rebuild, help others, and transform my pain into purpose. After the meeting, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 35, her eyes red from crying. My husband handles all of our money, she said. He told me I'm not good with numbers, that I should. Just let him take care of it. But something just doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is, just not right. I took her hand, trust that feeling, ask questions, look at the accounts. Don't let anyone, even the person you love, keep you in the dark about your own financial life. She nodded, crying harder. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being paranoid? Then you'll look silly for 5 minutes, and then you'll move on, secure in the knowledge that you're protecting yourself. But if you're right and you don't check, I squeezed her hand. You could lose all of it. She came back the next month with documents in hand. Her husband had taken money from their joint account and invested it in cryptocurrency that he swore would make them rich. He had lost $80,000. She had filed for divorce the day before. I'm terrified, she told me. But I'm also free. I knew exactly what she meant. Sophia's credit was finally cleared, just like mine. Michael had invested the $50,000 he saved when David tried to drag him into the failed startup, into a college fund for his children, locked securely where no one else could touch it. As for me, I didn't go back to the bookstore. I used the small compensation money and my bitter experience to establish Vance and Associates. With Michael and Sophia's small office specializing in basic legal and financial consulting for women. On the office wall hung a photo of the three of us and the inscription, Truth Freeze. Knowledge is armor. We help women like the old me women who felt something was wrong but didn't dare to ask questions. On what would have been my 39th wedding anniversary, I went to the bank. Not the old central bank, but a new, bright branch. I opened the first savings account in my life solely in my name. What is the account name? The young teller asked. Elena Vance, I said clearly. That was me before David, and that was me now, as. I walked out. I paused in front of the old bank building across the street, now closed and dusty. I didn't need to go in anymore. I had reclaimed the most important thing from that secret vault, my own name. A year later, I stood in the new bank, signing for my own exclusive savings account. On my phone, a notification popped. Up from the banking app, quartered compensation received. 5,000 United States dollars from Chloe Dawson, transferred to Grandchildren's Education Trust Fund. Half my face in the bulletproof glass of the teller window smiled. That number had finally come, full circle. On my desk at Vance & Associates, next to the photo of my children and me, a thick envelope from a federal investigation agency still lay unopened. The subject line peeked out partially. Investigation results. Connection between David A. Thompson and CD Trust Company and the true identity of Chloe Dawson. I placed my hand on the envelope. Inside was not just Chloe Dawson's true identity. It was the entire network, the hidden bank accounts, and undeniable evidence of fraud that could send her to prison. But also inside were the names of the 2 children in the Disneyland photo children who would lose their mother. I looked out the window and saw Sophia laughing with Michael. David had created a financial trap. I had escaped it. But should I activate this ethical trap myself, becoming the one to ruin an innocent family, even if their mother was guilty? I had survived, but did survival mean revenge at all costs? If you are reading this, if something in my story resonates, the locked doors, the don't worry promises, the feeling that something is wrong but untouchable, trust that small voice. Ask questions. Check the documents. True love doesn't require darkness or secrets hidden behind your back. It requires transparency and respect. And if one day you open your own safe deposit box and your world collapses, remember, you survived the betrayal. That means you are strong enough to rebuild everything on the very foundation of truth. I did. And you can too. 30 years of broken trust due to an emergency will and a secret box full of betrayal. Transforming Alina from an unjust victim into a warrior for justice. If you, like millions silently enduring financial abuse in marriage, crave justice and the strength for family recovery, subscribe to the channel now to help us spread hope. Turning shared pain into saving action, bringing understanding and lessons to protect your own future. The next story will reveal a darker identity twist, making you believe in the power of truth. Do you stand with the resilient Alina or David, the victim of his own plan? Comment now.